Hi friends, it's Mrs. Gardner and Dr. B here. We are going to review how we do a retell after reading a fiction story.
We've been working so hard on talking about our fiction books. And after we read a book, readers think about what they read. So today we want to teach you how to do just that and retell a fiction story.
So we're going to use the book Curious George Goes to an Ice Cream Shop as our example. The first thing that we always do when we do a retell are we talk about the characters in the story. And in this story we had Curious George, the man with the yellow hat, and the ice cream shop owner. And then we also had all of the customers. And then to get a 2, we would talk about the characters in the story as well as the setting and the time. This story took place in the ice cream shop during the day. And then to get a 3, we talk about the characters, the setting and the time, and the problem and solution. And in this story, George went to the ice cream shop and he started making ice cream all by himself, and he made a huge mess. And the solution, the ending of the story was, it ended up being okay because everybody helped clean up and George had lots of customers in the store.
So remember, today and every day, when you finish reading a book, think about what you read and try that retell.
Bye, guys.
Alrighty, so last week we had done a recording of a couple of books, and then we did or I should say you did, and then we did a co-teaching around retell. And so we're looking at the survey responses from how some of them have done based off of some of those with their retells based on their goals. So do you kind of want to summarize what data you have from them, from the ones that have been able to take it so far?
So what I noticed on the ones where they missed, it was mainly on the setting. Either they didn't name the 2 different places that the story took place in, because in this story it started off at the house and then it went to the ice cream shop. So some of them did not mention both of those settings. And then the other thing that I noticed is 1 or 2 of our friends didn't necessarily take note of what time of the day it is. And that was one thing that we had been working on before we went on to the extended closure, was when we're talking about the setting, we talk about where the story took place and when. So did it happen during the day or during the nighttime?
Okay.
And that was basically the only little stumbles they had. They did real good with the characters, and they really did good with the problem and the solution too. Which I would think that the bigger issue would be like the problem and solution. I would think that would be trickier for them.
Yeah.
No.
But when we left off, when we were still at school, we were talking a lot about problems like that characters were having. So it makes me think that that's some good feedback for us, that they've held on to some of that and recognizing it. So that's a good thing.
Right.
Okay. And it also makes me wonder too, if text level, like now that if we want to be more strategic with something that's a little harder, if the problem is not as easy to recognize in some text as others, that may be starting to move into a text that it's a little bit more difficult, or if they have multiple problems, like what's the biggest one?
And this kiddo generally reads like on a level B, just
Okay.
for your information.
Uh-huh.
So this Curious George is really, really higher level.
Yeah. So that's good though that they were able to pick out some of these things. Yeah.
Right.
That picture support is probably very important for that student. So that would be something to have the next time around, I would best to keep that.
Right.
So where do you think then our next step should be as far as for your next text? And
Okay. So I kind of tried to do a little bit of this independently.
okay.
So you can let me know what you think about this. So for their next lesson, I looked on A to Z reading, and I looked at the levels, like one above their independent level, and I just picked a book and I did a Loom video so they could still see me in the corner, and I read that aloud, and then I in the little video I said, first Miss Gardner will read it. If you want to read it with me, go ahead and read it with me, and then I want you to go back through this again and we're going to read it together. And so for my kiddos that are working on Retell, I had that video, and then they're going to do a flip grid back to me with their little Retell information, and I included in the material on their Google Classroom the little anchor chart that they're used to seeing in class so that they can remember the characters and the setting, what to include in the Retell. And then for my other group, I have a completely different story, just like I said, one level above their independent level, and I read through that. And then I was going to do another Google form with the comprehension questions and then include the pictures as well. So this time when I'm reading the story, they can actually read along instead of just listening. Like the Curious George, sure, they may have really enjoyed it, but some of those words are tougher and they're smaller print, whereas the A to Z books are going to be more on their level where they can actually join in on the reading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably one of the things to think around that leveling, which we have quite a range of levels here, but to be able to have them reading along might be kind of like what we were doing a little bit with that shared reading approach too, if you think about it.
Right, and it's just harder when they don't have the actual book in their hand and they're reading it on screen. So it just all takes a little bit getting used to and adjusting.
Yeah. So I have two questions, kind of thinking here. Before I ask the two questions, did you already record your reading?
I did.
Okay. I wondered too if your lesson video, kind of like, how our Retell was really short with that 2 to 3 minute max. Right. If that's something to think around maybe this time of focusing more on the setting part, that you could still do like that full Retell like we had done, but yet that part's real short, but yet your beginning is focused a little bit more on the setting and maybe having a couple of pictures from the actual text that you describe your thinking out loud. Because I wonder, that being the area that they struggled most with, that's what should maybe highlight, but then you still do an overall quick Retell at the end of whatever the text that you had for your examples. What do you think about that?
That's like a plan. I think that would be good.
Okay. We can still use that same structure that we did for the Retell.
Okay. Now, just so you know, I did put that on Google Classroom already, but I think that's okay. I think that's the video and their little comprehension questions, because this week I was adding another area of their IEP goal. So I wanted their reading to be something they were very familiar with. And then since they were getting another activity, I didn't want it to be too necessarily brand new, even though this isn't really brand new. I wanted them to feel comfortable with, oh, this was pretty much what we did last week. There's just a story. So
you could do this video for the start of next week.
Okay.
We do. So that way you don't feel like you're putting too much out there, and we could just do another book. Like what we plan right now could be for your next week, since you have that other stuff there. That kind of gives maybe a chance for them to have that practice some more, and it gives us a little bit more data to guide some next steps as well. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. That way I already have it. This could be for what we do for next week if you want. You could also do your example from one of those epic books, because then you could have that for some of those pictures and stuff. So just so that they're seeing another example of a different kind of text. Like,
I was looking into Epic because those are very fun and engaging. Some of them even have like the little music behind there. My only concern with that is I didn't want the parents to have to log into something else again and sign
right.
and do all that. So I really wanted to use that, but I could not find out a way to go around with them not having to log in. I know they don't have to create an account, but to log in and password, some of these parents are so overwhelmed. I didn't want them to have to go to another thing. I'm trying to put everything they need right in their little Google Classroom that's specific to their child. So
you could use it for just your text that you
okay.
so then that way you don't have to worry about that. That's what I was thinking for your lesson. Like you could record yourself reading it because it's just going on Google Classroom. So it would only be you logging on. And then, you know, as far as them having other access to other books to read, then you could do some of the other things that they've already got going.
So what
Epic, just you do.
Okay, so then if I do the Epic for my read aloud and little mini lesson, then whatever book that the kiddos need to read, I'm going to still put into Google Classroom. So A to Z is there another thing that would be that you would suggest other than that?
I can do some looking because there's a couple other resources out there, but
like I said, I just want it to be very simple because some of these kiddos are doing a lot of this on their own.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I think that would be easier for them to do their little activity related to what I read aloud than having them read something independent.
Yeah.
It's just kind of what.
Well, it takes that fluency decoding piece out that some of your kids also have goals for. And so that, because what are we really looking at here and trying to help them with? And that's more the comp part. So you're taking out the readability issue for right now.
Right.
So like you did for the Curious George, you have two different ones and you have questions on them. So what I was thinking we could do very similar, and you just use some Epic books that you record and have the couple of questions using your Google on, but our recorded lesson, like we did Retell, could be that we just focus on one of those Epic books as well to refer to, but we just have more of a learning target around the setting.
Right.
And the Retell in general, like we did this last time.
And then I would still base, since I'm doing two different reading comprehension groups here, I'm still going to separate those more than I did the Curious George ones the first week. So more on just one level above. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you think since this is all virtually, I mean, be honest with me, I can do, like, should I separate that bigger group and have like basically 3 different reading comp groups online? Because in school, it's not feasible for me to add another group during the day somewhere. It just doesn't work out with everybody's schedule. But online, I mean, I can make it more specific to them. I might need to separate that bigger group. That would be better for the kids.
That's definitely a good way to go if you're ready to, record a few more.
Oh yeah, more practice for me.
Well, I was just thinking too, though, like you're probably faster, so like doing one recording. And I mean, if you make a mistake or two here and there, it's not a big deal.
Yes, and I've had to learn, like sometimes I forget to hit end meetings, so then there's a long pause at the end. I just have to let it go and be okay with not everything being perfect, which is hard. Or if I make some weird facial expressions or I do something weird with my shoulders. I mean, that's life.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's good.